I will finally add XRP to my portfolio when this signal triggers. Over the next 3 to 6 months, XRP should have one last shakeout which can present a great entry opportunity. Today, I'll look at XRP's performance against Bitcoin over this cycle, and I'll show you how it resembles the charts of Ethereum and Solana from last cycle. Welcome back to the VirtualBacon channel. My name is Dennis. I'm a crypto angel investor for the past 6 years, and I have invested in over 100 crypto startups. On this channel, I share views on market trends and investing strategy to build wealth in crypto. Now, before we start, this is a live stream, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the Q&A session that we'll have at the very end, where I will be taking your questions. And make sure to follow me on Twitter or X at VirtualBacon0x for quickest updates as the market is speeding up. Even on these live streams, I can only do them once per week realistically, so make sure to follow me on Twitter. Okay, so let's get into XRP. Now, I have never really held XRP in my portfolio, but I have been tracking it ever since the 2022 bear market. And longtime viewers of the channel, you guys would know, I have covered really my long-term stance on XRP from way back, I want to say 2 years ago, if you scroll like way down, like down here. So a little bit of a clickbait, but TLDR, I don't think XRP is going to $100. I believe in this video, my estimate is somewhere between $8 to $10 as a average target. If XRP gets to really become this payments giant, which it has the potential of. Now, from current price, well, from the time that I made that video, the upside potential was there. So my summary there was that, yes, if you really like the narrative of XRP, you might as well go for it, because if all the clouds clear for it in terms of the regulatory trouble that it had from 2023, then it has the potential to outperform a lot of other coins from the top 10. Now, long story short, XRP had a large rally last year around December time. So this was when Trump, right after Trump won the election on November 6th, this was the election date, XRP started to rally super hard. And really, this was coming from a lot of traders speculating that XRP was going to be added to the US Strategic Altcoin Reserve. Usually when there is hype happening in the US, the XRP army tends to over-exaggerate things too much. And of course, they claim the usual, that XRP was going to become the new world reserve currency. It's going to replace payment, etc., etc. Now, we won't go into that rabbit hole today. But suffice to say, the rally in Q4 last year was a good time to take profit. I made a video back then, back here. Yeah, this one. This was very controversial at the time, but in that video, I just checked it out earlier, 5 months ago on December 7th, XRP was trading at $2.50, and it did go a little bit higher to around $3. But I still stand by that call. I believe at $2.50, you were in the right mind to be selling XRP. And so far, XRP has dipped to $1.80, the lowest it has gotten in April. Now, I'm not dancing on anyone's graves here at all. I think XRP is going to go higher in the next leg up. However, it needs to take quite a bit of time to settle down, and for the initial hype wave to end, and for the actual long-term fundamentals to establish. Especially as Bitcoin continues to rally and bring up the altcoin market, XRP's next leg up will come sooner or later. However, to nail this entry, you really want to compare how a typical top 10 altcoin that has strong fundamentals going for it, how it behaves against Bitcoin. And I think you really got to track how Ethereum did last cycle and how Solana did about 2 to 1 year ago. This is going to really give you perspective as to how long it takes XRP to actually reach its potential. You can look at XRP and you can say, oh yeah, I have a target of XRP going to $10 and I'm going to buy and hold. Sure. For me personally, I'm not able to build this type of conviction just like that. I know a lot of older generation or a lot of retail investors really like to just go by this approach. More than like 3 times of my colleagues, right? People that are around my age, they work with me, and a lot of times I will ask them, okay, what's your favorite coin? What's your portfolio? They hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, some other altcoins. And then they would tell me, oh, my mom or my dad also is into crypto and they exclusively hold XRP. I wish I can be in that camp, but I can't. I know for a fact if I bought a lot of XRP and just blindly hold it, I'm not going to be able to catch those gains. People think, a coin is just going to keep rallying parabolic like XRP. But the whole reason why this happened in the first place is because prices were depressed. So just really quick, right? You have, I have too many things open here. You have Ethereum. Really, the cycle for Ethereum was last cycle when it was heavily depressed from the COVID crash. And this is why it got super popular and so many people just kept holding Ethereum, myself included, over the past 3 years. And then you have Solana, right? Solana was heavily beaten down by the FTX Luna crash in 2022. And thus it rallied from $10 low to $250. But since then, it has been chopping a lot. And similarly, you have XRP. Now, not as much multiples, but very dramatic rally because XRP finally got the green light, right? All the regulatory issues got cleared. It was a quick 180 turnaround from the SEC literally suing XRP to SEC recognizing XRP as forced by the Trump administration to be potentially a strategic reserve asset. Pretty crazy turnaround. And that's what caused this, right? So at that time, it was really a good time to sell the news. So today, you see over this last 6 months, the key pivot level here, I would say, is around $2 exact, right? Touched multiple times, 1, 2, 3, like 4, 5, 6, quickly broke below it, but bounced back. So right around that $2 level is really key. Now, personally, I believe we have a chance to get just below $2 one more time. And that's going to be my ideal entry here. And I'll show you why. So there are 2 ways this can play out, but both cases will involve us looking at the XRP versus Bitcoin ratio. So here's the XRP versus Bitcoin ratio, okay? And you'll see something, first, I'm just going to draw, yeah, so, okay. So since the Q4 rally, XRP versus Bitcoin has been showing this kind of rounded top where you have higher high, but lower high, right? Now, the key support level here is right around here, 0.000022. You see, hasn't been broken below since November last year. And we're very close to that level now. Now, some people will say, oh yeah, this is a strong support. We got to buy right here. I'm in the other camp, actually. And especially considering this kind of rounded top, I believe this level needs to be broken once for us to wick below. And that will be my entry trigger. I know some people say, oh, like the XRP fans will say, oh, that will never happen. But this isn't a big, massive drop that I'm calling for. I'm looking at somewhere between 20 to 23% of a drop on the XRP to BTC ratio. That will be a really strong value range. Now, these aren't just random targets. These come from typical large cap altcoin versus Bitcoin ratio charts that come from the previous rally based on Fibonacci retracement. So that's this rainbow chart that I have here. So if you map this rally that we had from the bottom to the top, and you look at the Fibonacci retracement, so typically, right, you have support at around 0.618, and then these lower ranges, 0.382 and 0.5, these are really your value ranges. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can go back to Ethereum versus BTC ratio from 2021 cycle, and you see pretty similar, right? This was from the bottom to the top, and you have your 0.618 as kind of that breakdown level that a lot of people kept buying, and then eventually it broke, and we touched the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement before bouncing. This was the mid-cycle correction that happened in summer 2022 for Ethereum. So this was a really good time to buy Ethereum in summer 2022 for a trade, right? Even if the coin doesn't make a new high on the BTC ratio, this is still very good time because it's middle of the bull market. Bitcoin made a second leg up, and Ethereum made a second leg up that outperformed Bitcoin further as well. So this was ETH BTC, and then you have SOL BTC, which is showing this signal right now. So this was what I talked about on my Solana video from a couple of days ago. So you see from the bottom to the top, Solana's 2023 rally up until early 2024. If you take the Fibonacci retracement of that on the BTC ratio pair, you see it peaked out at 1.618 is around the support that a lot of people kept longing, and then it broke. And for Solana, it went all the way down to around 0.382 for Fibonacci retracement. So somewhere between 382 and 0.5, this range. This is really your value range to be getting in on the BTC ratio. So let's go back to the XRP chart. That gives us basically right here in this range. So that's really what I'm targeting. And especially looking at how many people are looking at this level, I don't think this is a good idea to be buying here. It's much better off if you wait for it to wick below and then buy on the panic. Because a lot of people have been trapped on XRP over this like earlier move, but they're not seeing the whole picture. But anyways, so knowing this, okay, what can trigger this pattern to play out? Remember, this is XRP to Bitcoin ratio chart. So if XRP versus Bitcoin ratio goes down 22%, there are two ways you can look at this. Number one is if Bitcoin just stays right around current level, 100K, let's say, right, round level, then XRP versus dollar price just needs to drop 22% for the XRP BTC ratio to drop 22%. That's if Bitcoin price stays the same. So that's kind of the lowest USD target that I would give XRP right now, which presents a value range. So you take current level, you take about, let's say, 22% down. That gives us just under $1.85, right? And that would match right below this USD, like $2 level that has been tested multiple times over the last 6 months. And the last time that it wicked below, quickly bought up, this kind of a scenario will catch a lot of people off guard because people think now the bull run is fully starting, et cetera, right? So this is the first scenario. The second scenario is if XRP just kind of chugs along sideways like this, chops along, and then Bitcoin rallies upwards 22%. So something like this. So let's say Bitcoin gets to 128K, which, I mean, at some point it will. But if XRP doesn't move much and just continues to chop along, then a lot of people would start to question, okay, what's really going on? Why am I holding my XRP if Bitcoin is just going up? So that also would show up in the XRP BTC chart like this, where the XRP BTC ratio goes down. So then you will have people again saying that, oh, why am I holding XRP? You know, I can't believe I got trapped in this, just like what they were saying about Solana. And they were saying about Ethereum not so long ago, just a couple months ago. So in either of these scenarios, XRP would be at a value range for me to buy and hold versus Bitcoin. And this is really the signal that I'm waiting for, is for XRP's value to drop against Bitcoin for another 20% or so, because usually this is the retracements that we see, where a very strong altcoin that made a explosive first rally, and then it comes back against BTC valuation some point in the middle of the cycle. Okay, so let's bring it back a bit then. Why XRP, you might ask? Why am I looking at XRP, especially now? So we looked at Ethereum, we looked at Solana. Those two assets really are separated in two buckets. I would say Ethereum is the main institutional asset. It's the tokenization play, it's the RWA play, it's the ETF play. It's Wall Street buying. I don't think many retail are really that interested in Ethereum anymore until Ethereum just price shoots up. Then they talk about it for a little bit. And then you have Solana. So Solana is the crypto native coin of choice. It's where people trade the most. It's where people launch new projects the most. And it's heavily concentrated on crypto Twitter. So people on crypto Twitter really, they rotate around very quick, which explains why Solana bounces really quick when the market turns green. XRP, however, is in that third bucket. And really, XRP is the ultimate retail coin. Your aunties, your grandmas, they love to talk about XRP whenever they get interested in crypto. It's the banker coin, the payment cryptocurrency that can replace Bitcoin to be used in global trade. It's also the longest running altcoin in the top 10. It's the coin that's accessible everywhere with a low unit price, so people think it's cheap. So the reason why XRP hasn't seen the next wave yet is because retail hasn't come back to crypto yet this year. They don't have money. So remember Q4 last year when Trump won the election and Bitcoin shot up over 100K? People were literally talking about XRP at dinner parties. XRP, Cardano, Dogecoin. Those were the three coins. They weren't talking about Solana or Ethereum. The same levels of excitement hasn't been happening right now, even though Bitcoin is near all-time high. Bitcoin just hit 106,000 yesterday, but we don't have any retail coming in and trying to buy XRP again. So at some point that will happen again, which is also gives me a little bit of a mixed signal that Bitcoin is probably going to head a little bit higher to trigger that retail wave to come in again. So whenever Bitcoin makes a new milestone, hits a new round number, that's when retail comes back in. So this is why I am starting to get prepared in XRP. I think Ethereum runs, Solana runs, but when you see the explosive XRP run is when retail comes in. So you don't want to ditch that narrative because that's a huge sector that's going to all of a sudden just explode. Okay, aside from the retail speculation, etc., the fundamentals of XRP is also much stronger today. Now, for the longest time, there have been weird things happening with XRP, especially with their regulation, with lawsuits. But this year, everything has been turned around. So the XRP lawsuit against the SEC is finally over. There's an official statement 10 days ago released that you can check out on the SEC's website about their settlement with Ripple on the sales of XRP as not a security. And something that's left a bit of a sour taste is Trump's first strategic altcoin reserve did not include XRP, but however, it also did not include most of the other altcoins mentioned, like Solana and Cardano. So it's not targeted at XRP. But at some point, this should turn around again, and I think they will probably do this around the same time when World Liberty Fi launches this year. So they'll probably try to do it around some sort of family business instead of altcoin reserve for the government. But I digress. That's probably another video. And also, XRP most likely is going to be getting official recognition as not a security. The XRP futures just launched on the CME, which is a heavily regulated TradFi exchange. The only other futures that are trading on here are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. So very big milestone. I think it's very natural, just a matter of time, that XRP gets a spot ETF this year alongside Solana, most likely as well. And XRP is also, Ripple is extremely rich, cash rich. So they're making big noise about going public all the time. And more recently, they have offered up to $5 billion to buy Circle to become a stablecoin issuing giant. Especially when they are trying to deal with Coinbase. Coinbase is a joint owner of Circle. So who knows? Maybe Ripple could even become this stablecoin issuing giant. I don't know. So, but this is some recent developments coming up. And these are just public catalysts. Remember, there are a lot of deeper things that people speculate all the time about, Saudi money, about, BlackRock and secret deals, etc. I'm not an expert in all of those. And I don't even know where to start. But I do have a friend of mine who is a longtime XRP whale that I'm trying to do an interview with, that we can go deep in that direction of the topic around XRP. So we'll save the FOMO for another time. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested. I think that's going to be a pretty educational, like pseudo-educational episode as well for an interview. So stay tuned for that. And last but not least, perhaps the biggest catalyst for XRP, to talk about it right now, to look at it right now, is because, let me go back to the chart. So XRP has such a long price history, okay? And especially because XRP has been suppressed against Bitcoin ever since 2017. So here is the XRP BTC price again. So if we zoom all the way out, let's take a weekly chart, right? If XRP can break its resistance on the BTC ratio that we made just this year over the last 6 months, not only will price be quite good, but also this signals something very dramatic, which is essentially this will be a new high on the XRP versus BTC ratio that can lead all the way back to November 2020. So this will be the first time that an altcoin that's pre-2017 actually made a comeback and established a new uptrend against Bitcoin. And there are many altcoins that are trying to do this. Okay, Solana is trying to do this cycle. If it can make a new high above $700, it would be really nice, because then it would have accomplished that. Ethereum is kind of trying to even make a comeback in that sense, although it's very far-fetched from that now. You can look at, for example, Cardano. So Cardano tried to do that last cycle from the BTC valuation high in August 2021. It basically stopped right at its first cycle high in January 2018. And I will argue because Cardano launched a little bit too late in the Q4 2017 time when there wasn't really much there. So it peaked at this level again, but then it just bled again against Bitcoin. So I would say if XRP can make this comeback and make a uptrend again, right? Let's say it does this and just needs to close above this level on a weekly time frame. on the BTC ratio. This would signal something very meaningful for the altcoin market as a whole, which is something that has existed as an altcoin for, what is this, like over 10 years, okay? It fluctuates against Bitcoin. It had a first hype wave when it was kind of gray area, ICO stage, 2017, and then it was super beaten down against Bitcoin over all this time, 2 cycles now, where it was hit with multiple lawsuits, but then it turned itself around. It establishes itself. Maybe it gets its ETF, which most likely it's going to, and maybe it's some strategic reserve standing, and then it starts to uptrend against Bitcoin. That would be a huge comeback story that a lot of other altcoins can look at, can compare themselves with. And I think this is a really a strong story, a strong catalyst that doesn't take far to reach. So there are very few altcoins that have this kind of history that's so long in the top 10 that can try to establish one of these comeback stories. So I think this is a narrative that Ripple themselves will really try to push for XRP. So if this happens, then you can talk about all the other things that XRP could potentially serve as an asset. But I think we got to get back up in this uptrend again. Otherwise, if it fades again, like all other altcoins against Bitcoin valuation and does something like this, even for this cycle, then yeah, that's not a good look. So this is why I'm closely watching XRP in terms of its performance against Bitcoin this time around. And yeah, so that's it. For retail coin, right? There are really, so let's take another step back and think about the main sectors of incumbents in the market today. You have Ethereum, which is the institutional asset. If Ethereum can outperform Bitcoin by a lot this cycle, then you have a case to be made where Ethereum is like digital oil versus Bitcoin's digital gold. Then you have Solana. Solana, if it can outperform Bitcoin by a lot and make a new uptrend against Bitcoin valuation this cycle, then you can argue that, okay, Solana is the chain for fast trading, for hyper-scalable applications, for all the world to run on DeFi, etc. All of that, right? If you're into that narrative. But again, Solana coin itself needs to establish. XRP really is all the retail shenanigans that you might slap on top of crypto. So reserve currency, right? Payment coin, payment network, whatever, right? There's so many things that I don't even know like what buzzwords to use. I would say if XRP can do this, then that opens up a lot of other altcoins in the same category. Cardano. You have like Stellar Lumens, you have Hedera, XDC, you have all the Algorand, like a lot of these other coins that are pursuing a similar narrative, they all of a sudden become a lot more meaningful because they see this example being established before. And one last anecdote I want to give you is look at Dogecoin, right? Dogecoin has existed since 2014, and it was one of the only coins that kept bleeding and doing nothing against Bitcoin, just kind of oscillating, doing nothing. And then all of a sudden, this sector was born that's called memecoins. And Dogecoin was really the grandfather of memecoins. It made this rally and showed the world that, okay, if you invest in meme coins, you can outperform Bitcoin just suddenly like this by like 100x. And then that led to the birth of, Shiba Inu, later on like Pepe and all these other meme coins. So I would say to set the standard for all the same fans of retail coins, XRP really needs to lead the way. And that's why I think it's a very interesting one to watch. So I'll leave it with that, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's leave there and save the rest of the XRP FOMO for another video that's more fundamental focused. But for today's video, I would just say over the next 3 to 6 months, I am expecting potentially a little bit more chop and downward move for XRP versus BTC valuation. Let's say another 20 to 22% down like this, where XRP price could come as low as $1.80. That would be really nice for value range if Bitcoin stays at 100K. If not, then Bitcoin could go up to 125, 130K, and XRP, if it stays around the same price, I will also be picking it up and adding it to my portfolio. I think both of those scenarios present good value ranges to get into XRP. And that's my trade plan. For the people that really believe XRP is going to be much, much higher than $10, I don't have all the deep knowledge, like the kind of conspiracy-like knowledge from public research. So I'll try to do another interview episode with my XRP whale friend who is actually on that side of the spectrum. He really thinks XRP is going way, way higher. And I respect him a lot because he is actually a very knowledgeable, like fundamental investor. He's been in crypto longer than I have. So I'll try to do an episode like that, and maybe I'll change my mind. But so far, I don't know how that can be accomplished. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Okay. Before I go, make sure to follow me on Twitter or X at VirtualBacon0x for quick updates before I make them into these videos. And make sure to subscribe to the channel for weekly live streams. We're trying to do every week on Mondays. So tune in next week for more live trade setups and updates, especially when the market is moving. We try to go live as soon as possible. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next video and the next live stream. Bye-bye.